Hey there. Let's take a look at episode 6 of season 3 of House of the Dragon. So, I've heard some people say this is like their least favorite episode. I feel like I like this better than last week's. Last week's felt a little bit inconsistent. There's some issues with this episode, but this is an okay episode, I think. So, we start off with Kristen Cole here in his final moments, an inglorious death, a deserved inglorious death. This is, par for the course of this, franchise, Game of Thrones. Last time I was thinking like, oh, they were like telegraphing his death pretty clearly because, his whole like nihilistic outlook, like, oh, I'm gonna go and die in battle and glory. And I was thinking like, oh, but like the show doesn't really is like it subverts your expectations, so like I thought that maybe he might survive just because of that, because you're expecting him to die, like, thematically for the story. But no, it's another one of those like oh, you think you're gonna have a fun battle sequence or have like a heroic moment, but no, this dark grim dark fantasy story is more about replicating reality, where it's not always a rosy, glorious death for our characters here. And I think it's fitting for the theme of the show, of course, and for his character arc. And of course, a lot of people who probably, some dudes who probably were really into Kristen Cole wanted to see him battle, or something more supposedly fitting for his character. But I think they were missing the point of his character. A Kristen Cole type fan may have not really been paying attention. So I think it makes sense for this. I hear it happens similarly in the book. He gets pincushioned. But the thing is that like they already did the pincushion death or Jacaerys, so I felt like this is a little bit repetitive. Like, it would have been better to see, I think, like a different variation, maybe like someone throwing an axe at him or something, I don't know, or even having like a moment of them charging and like him, there's a moment of like, oh, he's gonna like do some real gnarly slashes at somebody, but at the moment he's about to swing his sword, someone cuts his head off or something, I don't know, or something like like abrupt, kind of like that. But this is the abrupt moment, of course, is him when he's like gonna, trying to talk to this guy here, and he gets arrowed by this character who I think is a character in the book, and we saw her singing along in the celebration in like a couple episodes ago. I wonder if we'll see more of her now. She's just like a rando character at this point. But I am liking the young Tully guy here. Every time I see him, he gets more interesting. Poor little Kristen. Not really. Anyway, so then that's Kristen. And so then we have Alicent trapped with Helena. So I thought like this was going to go on for a while. The whole situation here, trapped in the in the back rooms of the castle, but nope, they quickly got found pretty quickly. So, but it's fine, because it's probably would have been it would have been not as interesting if they were stuck there for like a whole episode, maybe. I mean, it could have been, I don't know, it could have been an interesting scenario. But you gotta keep the story moving, right? So we get to the council scene. The council is fully formed here, fully established, and things are getting dire. The cops are mostly gone, and I guess Damon wants to go out and go to Tumbleton or something, right, to attack. But Rhaenyra's like, no, you got to calm down. You got to handle this city watch here. Which she's okay with, I guess, in this moment. An interesting thing also someone mentioned, is that like he talks about the dream here to Rhaenyra. he's like, remember your dream, whatever. Like whatever you do is justified. Whatever you do in this service of this prophecy is justified. And we do have Orwell here have a little bit of a look here, because the thing here is that like, but it might just be like he's adjusting a little bit his posture to listen in a little closely, because he is whispering a little bit. The thing is that like supposedly nobody really knows about the dream prophecy except for the Targaryens, and even Daemon didn't really know about it. Viserys never told him. That was a big thing last season or whatever. And like, so it's a little weird that he spoke it out loud here without talking Valerian. But he's like in the heat of the moment, and he's pretty quiet. And like, there's probably I suspect people suspect that the Targaryens have like prophecies and traditions that they follow, whatever, that it may not be that big of a deal that he dropped that bomb here, but yeah, it was a little bit interesting there. And then so now she starts to hatch the plan. How is she gonna maybe sneak in and assassinate the king, the supposed King Darren, that the Ormond and Tie Towers want to be king instead of Rhaenyra. So that's what they're doing here. That's why she's like, give me your belt. I was a little bit confused about this. Like, what are you doing here? Like, but now it makes sense when you go back. It's like, she's like, give me your belt, because she's taking their uniforms because she's going to send in assassins. And we got Ulf and this guy, Hugh, hanging out here. And Hugh really just wants to get in and see his wife. That's his thing. So here we have again Alicent and Rhaenyra figuring things out. She's like, is this the start point where like, it's like another point on the board here of Rhaenyra getting a little bit crueler and crueler, but also like kind of telling Alicent like, hey, like, it's also like, because of your mistakes and what you did, like I have to now imprison you more. Like it's not completely my fault, so it's kind of like a back and forth here of like, Rhaenyra's like, again, having forced to be doing these decisions, as Alicent has told her, that she doesn't want to do, these decisions that she wouldn't do otherwise, but because she's pressured from the realm, the position of being on a queen on the throne and stuff. And so it's gnawing at her more at this point. And they're going to have another little meeting a little later. But interesting here is Mysaria is at last trying to have a little bit of division between her and Rhaenyra here in terms of keeping a little bit more secrets from Rhaenyra. She was all about like telling Rhaenyra everything, the queen, but now, because Alicent actually told Rhaenyra about the pregnancy of the Helaena is pregnant, like, Mysaria has to pretend that she doesn't know, because she would get on Rhaenyra's bad side if Rhaenyra knew that she knew beforehand. So here's a moment where she's like telling the maids, basically, she's crossing a line. Now Mysaria's also like, crossing over to the bad side again, because she was one of the most virtuous characters. She was a little bit, manipulative, conniving in that sense, but it always with the principled purpose of protecting the people of King's Landing and looking out for the small folk. But now she's starting to compromise those principles a bit to save her own ass, so she commands the guy, this guard here, to kill that maid, because she like has some awareness about the whole plot of Mysaria finding out about Alicent and Helaena escaping and like the pregnancy and all that. So she's got to cover her tracks. And then finally we see these gold cloaks resign here. Daemon here tries to deliver another little speech here, but it does not work at all because they're not getting paid. They need to feed their families. And it's good to see that they're finally sticking up for themselves here and decide not to continue. It's always good to see when the cop quits. And so then, we'll see what Daemon does with that, but that's not good for Daemon. And so, of course, it's still over here in the battlefield, kind of in the forest. And his son is like, hey, we need more troops in the city because there's no cops there. And a pivotal moment here really is when, like, Alan is like, hey, you're still upset about Rhaenyra. and he points out that like, you know, it's kind of hypocritical for you to be upset that Henrietta doesn't give me the title of Valerian, but it took you like, you know, all these years, you know. I'm like, and he's probably in his mid-20s or something at this point, this guy Alan. He's like, hey, like it took you all these years, like, to give me any respect. So, you know, look who's talking. And then so now we know that so now we have a little image here of Aegon here was able, and the crew was able to escape that little camp without being raising any suspicions, you know. And they're digging up the body here to cover it up, and they're trying to figure out where to go. And then it's interesting here that like Aegon is like, hey, do you think I'm a bad person? And of course the Lannister guy here is a little bit more not as confident with his words, and a little bit more scared of what Aegon could potentially do later on if he, you know, is a little bit too harsh, kind of like Larys is. Larys, you know, he's a little bit, he's a way more confident character. So it's kind of a funny situation here, and maybe it's kind of indicating that like Aegon is leveraging a little bit more power here. It's like, oh, like if the Lannister guy is going to be on my side, maybe I'll listen to him and go along with the, you know, with his plan. But I think he says here that he's going to go to Essos, right? But maybe he's like trying to he's trying to like pit them against each other, and like soon enough he'll side with Lannister if it benefits him, you know, and Larys will be left out cold. So we'll see where that leads. He's still like holding on to his scale, the dragon scale, right? Is that what he's holding on to here? Or maybe that's some food or something. I think we saw it a while ago, a bit ago, right? He was holding on to his scale or something. But I think it's just an acorn or something. But that dragon scale is going to come up at some point. It has to. Then we get a little brief look at Baela here. What's this? Who's this again? Baela's the other one. There's the sister. This is Rhaena, right? Ray. We're gonna talk about, yeah, this is Rhaena. We're gonna talk about Baela and Alan later. That's a bit of a surprise. And so then we have back over here, we got you know what's going on here. Aegon here is having to brush aside, at least trying to, potential seduction from Alice here. Alice has a big plan. She's got a big plan now. She's gonna, you know, a little bit of foreshadowing here of like they're gonna get closer and closer and closer. We'll get into that story in a second. And so here the whole thing is that like she caused too much attention. She ran off. She was trying to look for Baela, I think, her sister or something, but she couldn't find her, and that got this lady here, Lady Rivers or something. No, that's I'm confusing names. Lady Air. Let's see, Jane Airn, I think is her name. And like, yeah, so she doesn't want to cause any noise or get, you know, her attention put on her for harboring a dragon, you know. So she's all mad about that. So that, you know, it's gonna come into the picture a little later, I imagine, when you know, Rhaena's here is gonna have enough and probably gonna start joining the battle. I imagine she'll join the Tumbleton battle in a bit. But speaking of her sister here, she's having a little bit of one-on-one with Alan here, and this is a complete surprise, really, because we saw her, you know, her and Adam last week or so, have a, you know, patrolling and having a little bonding moment. And I even thought, oh, there might be a little bit of flirtation going on there. So there was a little bit of planting the seeds for potential romance there, but then it's kind of swerves like, oh, actually she and Alan are hooking up here, you know. And so this was abrupt, because I think this is like the only scene between them that we've seen see, like have a significant conversation about their fathers. Of course, Alan always uses this as a trick to connect with people. He's always talks about how, you know, his father's like, oh, your father's like my father. Yeah, our father. And she's kind of bringing that up too, but he connects with the father connection is how they connect. And the thing is, all of a sudden they start, you know, she's like, I want to kiss. And it just would have been better if like we saw some indication of this beforehand, you know, like some, at least one other scene, you know, maybe even similar to the scene with Adam and that she had with Adam, you know, because then they would have maybe had a little moment of like, oh, you know, maybe there's a little bit of jealousy between the brothers, you know. Yeah, that could have been a little love triangle situation, but no, it was kind of abrupt. But of course, I think this is from my understanding from the books. They get together in the books, Alan and Bela here. So yeah, that's the thing. It just feels like these characters, they just haven't given them enough time to you know, to get here. So it just feels off, you know. So I didn't really quite feel this. I'm sure a lot of people agree that this didn't really feel as earned. And so we get back to here, which is probably the best sequence. This whole setting here with Ormond and Gwaine coming back. Like, this is probably the best part of this episode. Really good stuff. Gwaine, of course, is like, hey, we got it. What are you doing? You're mad. You're like, you're not going to win this battle, you know? And there's a little moment here too, where it seems to be, you know, besides of course Ormond, you know, being you know, misogynist as always, calling women squeamish and stuff like that. He says that Gwen isn't as courageous, and he mentioned something about like, oh, like I'm sure you spent some time with your fellow soldiers or something, implying, you know, some you know, gay relationship. And it seems that I don't think we've really seen that before or acknowledged Gwaine's sexuality before. It might be the first time. And then, you know, so he feels a little bit offended about that. Obviously, that makes sense. And Darren, of course, who actually is his nephew, right? So he's Allison's brother. So yeah, so that's Darren's uncle there. And then he is the brother of, or is he the son of the father of Otto Hightower? It's all a little confusing, but they're all in the, this is all in the family. Oh yeah, speaking of all in the family, I forgot to mention that they're this is all in the family too. You know, Adam and Alan, they're the sons of Corlys, and Corlys is, you know, her grandfather, right? So it's like that. Yeah, it's, you know, I guess again, par for the course. Anyways, so back to this. So yeah, so the interesting thing here that I found really a little bit more uplifting, because this, you know, because Ormond is very irritating, and he seems, these last few episodes, he seemed very powerful and mostly competent. But this really kind of showcases that he isn't as competent this episode, and he's not super all powerful, and not everybody's super loyal to him, and even maybe in his face they are. But when they're not, you know, when they've got some time away from him, these two, they have a sort of alliance here, right? And they kind of belittle or not respect, you know, Ormond as much, and even Gwaine's like, oh, you know, he's going to ruin things here. I have to go back to back home and make sure, you know, to prepare to fix things once he gets back, you know. So it's like, you know, they don't really treat him or Ormond that seriously as like, you know, as a serious person, you know. And so that's cool to see here, you know, because, you know, it gives a little hope that, oh, okay, there are some good people here in this Hightower family, you know. And then of course we see what's coming to come up next with Gwaine saving the day in a second. Also kind of interesting to see how like Darren kind of is kind of significantly taller than Gwaine. It kind of, you know, because at first, like when we saw Darren, like he seemed like like a little kid, but like he's still a young kid, but like not super young, but like the stature he has here and everything, and then later on, like he's starting to feel a little bit more kingly, you know, more like a king type of character, a young king maybe, you know. So that's interesting. Anyways, you know, not that you have to be tall to be a king, but you know, just aesthetically, the you know, the high tower, you know, literally character to be a king who's actually, you know, imposing. He can be imposing. So I feel like he could potentially, you know, he's also he's kind of flirting with darkness this whole few episodes, so he could potentially become even more dangerously imposing, you know, and might even use his height to that advantage at some point. We'll see where that goes. Anywho, so then we get back to this. So did anybody else? I feel like people already figured this out, but I feel like I started to connect the dots here, that like Helena is the one who's making the embroidery opening credits. Like she's the one who's making the tapestry from the opening credits. I might have, you know, thought about that last season and forgot or something, but you know, because she's making this little thing here. I think we see it, you know, what she's making a little later, but she's always, you know, doing this. I mean, a lot of the characters, not a lot of them, but I think other characters have done embroidery here, but we see her do it. But that's interesting. But because the tapestry is kind of like shows images of people's deaths and stuff, and like kind of like is a summation of what's going on. The opening credits is, and so it makes sense that she's the one to do it because she has these dreams and stuff. And we'll see a little image of it later, to see what she's projecting here, but or what she's seeing. And so, you know, they're having argument about the whole situation. You know, Allison kind of misled her about like having the fact that her daughter was going to meet them later when they escaped. Oh, here's the image. And so, because the thing is that Allison, this whole time, Helena's kind of realizing that like all the things that her mother has done, intervene in her life to protect her, and so in a way, like it was nice to like, she kind of feels like her whole life has been controlled, so I wonder if at a certain point she's going to fight back and start asserting herself. It's like, hey, no, I'm going to decide, the direction of my life, maybe that's going to be interesting. That might be the thing, but of course it's a motherly thing to do. Of course, it makes sense for a mother to try to protect her child. And so we get an image here of what it looks like to be Aegon, right? Not Aegon, Aemond. And because we got the little eye here, the jewel eye, and is he dead? Like he's like curled up in a pool of blood. Is that what's going on here? Also potentially a bit like a potentially vaginal shape. Like could this be some indication that the witch mommy is gonna lead to his death? I don't know, but also like he has a lot of mommy issues. He's kind of like a fetus in the womb almost as well. So because and later on we'll see that Allison's gonna be forced to go meet him and potentially kill him. So that's the thing. So it could be foretelling a future of Allison killing her son. We'll see. And then we get back here because Aemon wants to get out of here. He's like, I gotta go find my dragon, and she shows that like, hey, I'll kill for you and protect you, and she's been doing this whole time because she has a bigger plan, and she's a good convince. She's very much more convincing than Allison has been, to convince Aemon here to be on her side here. And of course, this is kind of like a redo of her trying to court Daemon, which was not successful. But of course, Aemon here is a little bit more naive, and he's younger. He's lust for this power of dragon. So this works out when she shows him these dragon eggs that she's been hoarding a bit. I was thinking like maybe this was like fake, like she is a witch, like maybe she crafted or conjured some dragon eggs. But no, I think it's probably real. And he does see it, he said it's warm and stuff, so it feels like he would probably figure out easily if they were fake or not. But I don't know, maybe. But I guess these eggs are, from my understanding, are from the Dream Dragon, Dream Spring of what's the dragon's name? I think it's Helena's dragon that laid them a while ago, and apparently it's the same dragon that laid the eggs that Daenerys hatches in Game of Thrones. So, could be very fortuitous. So, and this is the moment where they consummate, almost like it's like, okay, here's the kiss. They are gonna be a thing now. And of course, she has all the power. She's using her power to gain more power by, persuading him like, hey, like we could be the rulers of this land. I can be your dragon queen wife, and you can be the dragon king, and so that's the whole thing here, and it's really convincing, and it makes sense, and the thing is that, like, this has become her plan. Like, has this been her plan the whole time? Like, when she was with, trying to get on Daemon's side, or Daemon to get on her side, like, she was just wanting like Harrenhal, this castle, but did she eventually want to potentially also get Daemon to cut it off with Rhaenyra and join her? Like, I don't know. Was that a thing? I don't know. Maybe not. I feel like this is during those moment, like after Daemon kind of rejected her, it's like, hey, no, like you can't have Harrenhal. And she realized that she couldn't get it that way. She switched plans. And when Aemon arrived, fell down at her foot, bleeding and stuff at her feet. Like, I feel like that's the moment when she was like, taking care of him and curing him. Like, that's when she started to formulate this idea, like, oh, maybe I should be even more ambitious, not just get the castle, but get the kingdom, and so that's interesting. Very interesting progression for a character. I think it's cool, so then that's gonna happen, and then back to the real queen, Rhaenyra. And now Rhaenyra again is is feeling a lot more out of touch. She's not being very respectful. She's like, "Oh, my master of coin will deal with it. Don't talk to me." She's like, even she's very dismissive of the nun here, who's like talking about like some young nuns disappearing, being kidnapped. Massaria takes notice, of course, but Rhaenyra's like, so focused on her own stuff she's got to do with the kingdom. She's like, oh, like I'll light a candle, for her. Like, damn, that's super harsh. It's like, damn, like it's so like super unempathetic. And that's pretty bad. It's funny how it's weird how like she doesn't even realize how crass that sounds, and of course the big moment here is she gets cut. She gets cut from the throne, because it is a throne made of swords, so you would expect to. Although Aegon never got cut, and supposedly if you get cut on the throne, you're not worthy and everything. But I don't know. That's just a thing. That's just a myth. I think it's mostly just thematically part of the character of like, it's just it's a fun little thing. It's like, oh, like don't get too cocky with the power. It's the throne. You got the throne, but at what cost? It's going to cut you. It's going to cut you. And so, could this be a foreshadowing of her developing a similar condition that her father got? Because he was getting cut, on the throne, and over several years, he just withered away into a living corpse, and then he died. So it's like, could that happen? I feel like next season is the last season. I don't think we're gonna time jump, but I think like before that happens, the show's gonna end. So either she's gonna die beforehand, before she becomes a zombie, or succeed. And I guess like if thematically, if she succeeds and she stays the queen for a while, when the show ends, maybe the bittersweet ending would be her like, you know, getting like little sword, like different swords and stuff around her body. It's like that's the price she pays. Like at the end, she survives and she wins, but she's slowly decaying and rotting. You know, that could be an ending. I don't know. So that we'll see where that goes. You know, that's interesting. You know, to see like also to see a female character rotting. Like I feel like, you know, in you know, we don't see that. We don't see, you know, we've seen that with Viserys, but like the idea of a monstrosity that's also this female queen could be interesting aesthetically, something we haven't seen before. I wonder if they'll do that or not. Probably not. And so then we go back to Daemon here posing as a gold cloak, and that's how he lures out this guy, and it's pretty painful ear death here. And he gets really not much information, that there's a bunch of them. You know, again, I wish we could have seen a little bit more of this group of bandits and stuff, and or you know these rebels here who are against the queen here, because they don't get much backstory here. We get just a general idea. It's kind of like just a cut and paste rebellion here, not really much info. But maybe we'll see more of that, you know. But the interesting thing is that like you would think he would like take him to the prison or something, and do some more questioning. You know, he did some torturous questioning before. Now he's not getting any more info out of this guy. At least like get info of like some of the headquarters or some kind of hideout or something. But no. And then he bumps into Ulf, who of course wants to get a drink. You know, he's like, hey, we deserve a little break. You know, we just every guy deserves some time off, simple pleasures. Men deserve their simple pleasures. And of course, Daemon wants none of that. And you know, showcasing how cruel he is to the whole town, you know, or the whole square here. And even within the eyes of one of the spies here, I think he may have noticed that. Does he chase after her? He might. I think he doesn't, right? Because he's looking this way, and then she goes off, and he goes the other way, right? But you would think he maybe he just assumed it was just some random kid, you know. But it indicates to us, the viewer, of course, because we've seen her before. She was one of the spies of the rebel group, and so it's just gonna grow larger and larger. He's just you know, digging a hole, Daemon here. But yeah, sad for Ulf there. No more drinks, and now, you know, again, let's complicate a little bit more these heroic figures here, these characters who you might want to identify with if you're one of the good guys. Like, oh yeah, Hugh Hammer, he's a decent guy, right? No, he's not so decent. Remember last season, right, when like he or whatever season it was, maybe first season, or I think it was last season, because I think he only came up in last season. He stole like the vegetables and food from this random person who was running by, because you know his motivation, of course, was to save his kid at the time, who ended up dying. But like, you know, he used some violence, you know. So we've gotten some little bit of hints here that this guy isn't such a nice guy. And also, I didn't realize this until now. Look at that. Here are the assassins here, also coming in, you know. I was thinking, like, what is really Ulf doing here? You know, I was thinking, oh, is he doing a sneaky mission? Is he going to try to, you know, get some glory here and try to assassinate the King Darren himself, you know? But no. So then again, Ormond just being an asshole, irritating, annoying person's like, just shut up, right? And so then here comes the assassins who are pretending to be from the House Baratheon, and they're all stinky, of course. So okay, we get a pretty clear pretty clear now that Ormond is gonna go down stinky. You know, he's gonna go down with some smelliness going on. That's his Achilles heel. You know, so you know, maybe it's a little bit, you know, too much, too repetitive. Like, oh yeah, we get it. He's a thing for smells, but really making it clear for us, that some, so then, Gwen of course realizes that, hey, like this guy isn't as hot as I remember him, because he remembers faces, Gwen, and he's more, he's a little bit more studious or understanding, or has a good memory in terms of like knowing what all these royals look like, and so he recognizes that they're not who they say they are, and that's why he attacks them and assassinates them, and showcasing that that Gwen actually is courageous, and he does have some good competence here in regards to protecting his own, and so he saves the day here, bloody, like, leading Ormond to puke again, showcasing how kind of just how weak Ormond is in reality. Again, showcasing this episode that, like, hey, Ormond isn't that powerful as we may have been led to believe, and then of course again he says here, it's like, oh, he far more comely, he says that this is not him, because he remember him have different hair, he's about a foot taller, and he was far more comely, which means more attractive, so again, a little bit more clues of like that Gwen is, either gay or bisexual, pansexual even, maybe, if that exists in this universe. But and so that's interesting. But again, with the queer characters in the show, like, we need to see more of it. Like, it feels like it's just kind of in the background. Like, we saw some of that, like, in the first season, and then last season Masari and Rhaenyra kissed, but the whole Masari and Rhaenyra thing again, it's again also hardly ever mentioned at all, or else we don't really get any indication that there's any any love between them besides just work life, and like and the thing is also, apparently that was improvised, the kiss between Rhaenyra and Mysaria last season, so that's probably why I guess they didn't want to add more context to it for the show, which is a missed opportunity. And then again, Gwen here is just alluded to. Are we going to have some indication with some scenes with him with somebody else later on? We'll see. I don't know, but it's just an unfortunate thing, and then of course we see that, back to heteronormativity being quite toxic quite often. Here we have Hugh coming back. It's like, hey, like, I got a dragon, dude. I'm a dragon rider. I'm here for you. I did it for you. We're gonna be rich. And of course she's like, I don't want this. Like, just you did it for yourself, for your own glory, and you're free. I mean, it's like going and becoming a top commander in the war. Like, is that really benefiting your family when you're gonna go and die in a war or something? Probably not. So of course she's like, hey, like, who are you? I don't even know you anymore. And she's like pushing them away. And so of course, this is a good apropos development for the story, for his character. Like, hey, like, yeah, he is a bit, again, being a little bit violent here again, trying to grab her, like, hey, you coming with me? And like, again, showcasing, hey, like, these nice guys, they aren't that nice. This is, they aren't that glorious, kind of similar to Kristen Cole. He's like another version of Kristen Cole, really. And so that's it, and so too bad if you liked him or anything. So anyway, so then we're back here. This is like pretty much the ending, right? This kind of shows off how, like, Darren is like actually a good fighter here. Aegon was like a pretty lousy fighter. He didn't get much training. Aemond, of course, is a good fighter. Rhaenyra had trouble hacking down Otto, but Darren seems like, could be a good fighter on the field here. So, like, could we be seeing a battle between him and Aemond? You know, I mean, the whole show has been building up kind of to like Eamon versus Damon, but like maybe it's like Damon versus Darren, or I don't know. We'll see. It could be interesting, you know. So he's not just, you know, book smart. Like, you know, he's been trying to study and stuff, you know, because of Armand, but he's also showcased to have some skill here on the physically. But of course, the whole thing is like, hey, Dwayne, he's like, hey, so what are you really up to here? You know, what is your big problem here? What is your big plan here? Because Armin has been a little bit cagey about it, you know. He's like, oh, we're just gonna wait for them to attack us. They'll fight us on the home turf, you know. But he's got more up his sleeve, of course. Even though he's irritating and not as like amazing as he says he is, you know, as we've seen in this episode, Armin is, you know, does have some good plans, or at least have can do some maneuvering on the chessboard, you know. So we'll see where that leads. It probably won't be the best maneuvering, you know. I don't imagine him being, you know, at the top position at the end of this series, but we'll see. And it looks like maybe Gwaine might have to stay. I think it'd be good for the story if he stays to help out and have another ally on Darren's side, not leave Darren all alone, you know. So you know, it cuts, you know, away because we don't really get the answer. But back to Rhaenyra and Alicent. Okay, so this is a big moment here where pretty much Rhaenyra's like, hey, like we're gonna have to imprison you more, and like, oh, she asked like, you know, what can you give me, or like, and Alicent's like, oh, I can, you know, set Helena free at least, and I'll give you some info. I'll tell you where Vhagar is, or not Vhagar, I'll tell you where Aemond is. And she reveals like, hey, like Aemond is at Harrenhal. I know this because Helena dreamed it up, and she has good dreams, and has been this whole time, I don't know if you noticed, she's been mumbling about prophecies, and a lot of them have come true, you know. So at least finally we get a confirmation that, you know, Helena is a dreamer here, which we all suspected, of course, and it was kind of pretty clear, but like I think within the world no one really like voiced it out loud until this point. And so that's what we're seeing here. And what's interesting, of course, is that Rhaenyra is like, hey, she's a dreamer. That's an important tool in my tool shed I can use. And so this is really the moment, okay, the episode for sure, maybe this is the season, where it's like, okay, Rhaenyra has now been a cold queen. She's crossed to the dark side a little bit, or, you know, or at least in the gray area a little more so than before, because she's sending Alicent over to take out Aemond, like, you know, like, hey, like, you gotta do this for me now, and you gotta go kill your own son. And even Alicent's like, hey, like, I told you would do something that you would regret, or you would do things that you never thought you could do. And it's not quite so she says, like, you know, go make sure the best way to get rid of Aemon, right, is first to send someone he trusts, which is his mother, of course, instead of sending an army or whatever, or a dragon or whatever, like, instead of, so because then he would hide away somewhere or run away. So, you know, that's one of the things. Another thing is, like, all these things that Alicent has been trying to do. She's been trying to escape. She's been trying to maneuver all these things and try to save, you know, her daughter and everything, and save her Aegon, save Aemond, like, you know. But it's all this led to her eventually, you know, to the point where now she's faced with the idea of, like, okay, to save Helena, she has to choose between Helena or kill Aemond. And of course, you know, it's kind of an easy choice. Yeah, I guess I'll kill my son Aemond instead of Helena, because Aemon's pretty bad. And so, and also Aemond, you know, kissed her and everything. He's a much more dangerous person, obviously. Anyways, so, you know, that's kind of interesting thing there. And the thing is, like, is she telling her to go kill Aemon, like, herself with a knife or something, like, in, you know, some spy stuff? Or is she going to send, like, someone along with her? Like, she's going to have to send, like, a night guard with her, right? It would only be, you know, that's that's how she's always traveled, at least, right? Even when she snuck into Dragonstone that one time, she had a King's Guard with her. Like I was assuming that, I assumed that it was like she's gonna go, with a guard, and her her presence is gonna lower Damon's defenses down, not Damon, Aemon's defenses down, and get her close to him, and then at a pivotal moment, then the guard or somebody, the actual assassin, will come and and kill Aemon. But is it actually that she's saying telling Allison to do it herself? Because that's a little bit more cruel and more like poetic, I guess, storytelling wise, to have the mother herself kill her son. But again, she's like, she walks out without really getting a clear orders or anything. But maybe later, in between this moment and that moment, she gets the correct orders, like what she needs to do and stuff. But I don't know. But that's interesting. And then of course, okay, so more and more talk between them two, and again, like, one of those difficult decisions, right? It's like, oh, like the mother decides to marry her daughter to her other son, but in order to prevent her from being married off and go somewhere she doesn't know. So it's like one of those things, like Helena's like, well, I guess that was probably the best thing, even though it was out of my control. I guess I prefer that. And so that's that. But again, Rhaenyra's like, hey, like, I'll take care of Helena, and so she's gonna be here with Helena while Allison's out there, and it's gonna be contentious, right? Like, how is she gonna treat Helena? Rhaenyra's already shown to be becoming a little crueler this episode, and again, like, more out of touch and not as empathetic. And so, is she gonna treat her like a prisoner, or is she gonna try to use some honey to persuade Helena to do her bidding, to get those prophecies out of her? Like, how is that gonna work? She's not, it's not like she can just, close her eyes and look into the future. She has to have dreams and stuff, and I imagine, right? And so that's going to be interesting for her. But I'm wondering here too, because like Helena, of course, we've seen Helena kind of trying to showcase a little bit of independence here, or trying to like distance herself from her mother. And now with her mother out of the picture, is Helena going to step up and start defending herself a little more and start asserting, herself as like, and maybe even deciding, maybe she wants to be on Rhaenyra's side. Maybe she like switches sides here and she becomes part of Rhaenyra's gang, because she feels like she needs to, step away from her mother's shadow and stuff. And like, that usually happens during adolescence or a little later in college years. You get away from your family house, and you want to, become independent and be your own person. So maybe that's what's gonna happen. We'll see where that goes. That could be interesting. So hopefully Rhaenyra doesn't treat her too badly. Rhaenyra, don't get to be so mean. Helena's a sweet, poor girl. Okay, so then the big finale of this episode is, Corlys tells his men, it's like, hey, we got to go back to the city. We are needed there. And so these people who are hanging here, these are just like, they weren't the pirates. Are they I think he said he was going to go get rid of the pirates, but I think they're just like other like houses that are against Rhaenyra and stuff, right? Part of the war. But he's contemplating, his future here, and then these guys show up. This guy, of course, is like the second-hand man to Ormond, or at least his top guard or whatever. And they kidnap Corlys. They tie him up. Once again, we cut away to after scene of Corlys getting, attacked or something, right? Like, we've seen this several times now, where off screen we don't know if Corlys is dead or not, but we never see his body. getting chopped or anything. And so he always comes back, and I suspect this is another one of those moments where he's going to come back. And it makes sense that they won't kill him, but they're capturing him, they're kidnapping him to use him, to get a one up on Rhaenyra. I suspect what they're doing maybe is like they're gonna tie him up, and they're gonna persuade him, coerce him, force him, threaten him to perhaps be a spy or something, or encourage Rhaenyra to come meet him somewhere. I don't know, something, or feed Rhaenyra some bad information in order to, for Ormond to win the battle, and then the war against her, So, that's gonna be interesting too, because Corlys does have, conflicting motivations here. He has been against Rhaenyra since he didn't give his sons the proper title of his name. And but then Alan came by this episode. It's like, hey, don't be hypocritical. You took your time to give me any respect. So it's like, in this moment, it seemed like Corlys was kind of like, kind of becoming ready to forgive Rhaenyra. I feel like this is kind of what this was indicating. I think maybe. Or it could be indicating that's like, maybe I'll just have to, hold my tongue for a little bit longer, and not completely forgive her, but, help Rhaenyra out for a bit longer. Maybe later we can figure things out. So something like that. So, but yeah, so it was a pivotal moment. But now, will Corlys switch sides, Maybe he'll have to do it, unwillingly, to save, maybe his sons or something, because to end the war or something quicker or something. I don't know. Like, might be getting a good deal. Like, oh, you can have this castle, and Ormond will offer him, a good life with his sons somewhere else or something. I don't know. Anything can happen, but that's going to be interesting. We'll see where that ends up. And that's the episode. That's episode 6. So yeah, I thought it was an okay episode. I didn't mind so much. Really, the big issue, really, the big thing was the the Bela and Alan thing. Like, they just did not deliver this at all. Just came out of nowhere. So, and then, but overall, I liked it. I thought, the a little bit repetitive, the pincushion situation, but I think it was, if you didn't see this coming, you weren't really paying attention. He was never going to get a good, happy, heroic ending, Kristen Cole. And yeah, the Gwaine and Ormond and Darren scenario here is really good. So we'll see where that ends up. And also the Helena thing, I think, was a big thing. Like, I think why I like this episode more than last week is because this episode, I feel like, really kind of push forward the character development of these characters, of Rhaenyra, of Alicent, of Helena, of Gwaine, Gwaine and Darren. Like, it really moved forward with their characters. Well, I feel like last episode kind of was a little bit spinning their wheels a little bit. So I don't know why some people will say that like nothing of significance happened in this episode. I think a good amount happened. And we're getting close to the end here, to this season. So I imagine the big battle, Tumbleton, could be the finale, but with these this franchise, they tend to have like the big battles, bombastic episode being the penultimate, and then the finale of the season is kind of the aftermath. But that wasn't the case with season 2. That's because it was that was a unique situation because of the writer's strike and because HBO was being stupid. But like, that kind of like truncated the season. But then they also made this season 8 episodes. But then, but they knew ahead of time it was 8 episodes this time, so they could have. So I think maybe that's a good thing for this season, that they know how to end it properly this time. They'll know how to do it. So, oh yeah, she did get this message here. Kick this dog and it will bite your hand. So, okay, interesting wording here. Now it kind of has a similar. It looks like this is from the gang that killed the Gold Cloaks, right? They write in blood, and it's on the Baratheon armor, right? So I guess, you know, either way, the gang that killed the Gold Cloaks is working for Ormond, so it's from that faction, you know. So it could be someone working for Ormond of who sent this, and this is the uniform from the Baratheon assassins. So she figures out, of course, here that plan did not work. But you know, but is this like showing too much? Is this giving too much of a clue here by saying bite the hand, as in Corlys is her hand, you know, even though Alan is the acting hand, Corlys is the official hand of the queen. So maybe you shouldn't have written that, you know, because now she could potentially figure out that Corlys is compromised. I don't know. So that's interesting, but that could just be a thing. You know, I don't know about that decision to do that, for the writers to include that. It could just be a clue for a foreshadowing for the audience, but it, you know, within the world, Rhaenyra can read too, you know. So I don't know. We'll see where that goes, but yeah, I feel like, you know, so I feel like this is the end of the season. I think I don't think they'll fuck it up as much, in the sense of, I think they'll have a satisfying ending for the closing arc of the season, with either the battle or the aftermath of the battle, and not like tease us for a couple years in between battles. Like, I feel like that they would have to have learned the issue with last season. They wouldn't possibly repeat the same mistake this season of like, you know, ending it right at the moment where they're going into battle or something, right? So, right. Surely. I don't know. So let me know what you think. What were your thoughts on the episode? I will be here next time. Until then, I'm under this moonlight, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.